a queen, locked inside her own tomb, surrounded by gold and treasure she swore to burn before letting Rome take it, sends out a message that she is dead. And a man who commanded half the known world falls apart the moment he hears it. That is where this story gets interesting. Because what Cleopatra did in those final weeks of 30 BC was not a desperate act of grief. It was a move. A calculated, cold-blooded move by one of the most tactically brilliant people the ancient world ever produced. And by the end of this video, you're going to see that the version of Cleopatra most people carry around in their heads, the tragic romantic, the beautiful victim, is almost entirely a story that Rome wrote about her after they had already won. This video is about the real sequence of events. What actually happened at the end, why she did what she did, and what it tells us about who she actually was. We'll go through the whole arc, from how she got into this situation in the first place, to the fake death, to what happened when Antony heard the news, to the final days inside that mausoleum. And there's one detail near the end of this story that almost nobody talks about, because it quietly changes how you read everything that came before it. Let's start before the crisis, because you need to understand who Cleopatra was before you can understand what she was doing in those final days. This was not someone who panicked. When Julius Caesar came to Egypt, Cleopatra saw an opportunity to win a powerful Roman ally. And according to Plutarch's famous account, she smuggled herself into his quarters and tumbled out of a carpet, or more likely, a basket of laundry. Now, the ancient evidence is less tidy than the legend. Plutarch, writing more than a century later, says she was packed in bedding, or a sack used for bedclothes and brought in by a loyal servant named Apollodorus. The carpet detail came later. But that's almost beside the point. Cleopatra needed direct access to the most powerful outsider in the city, and she needed it before rival courtiers could block her. Whether the bundle was a rug, a linen wrap, or a bedroll, the point was practical. Gain a private audience in a dangerous political moment. That's who she was. When the situation was impossible, she found a way through it that nobody else would have thought of. The episode has lasted because it captures something true about the moment. Cleopatra understood presentation, risk, and timing. And she did it more than once. That pattern matters because it's the exact same instinct that drives the fake death story years later. So fast forward. The young Cleopatra won Caesar's affections, took back the throne, and sealed the alliance with the birth of a son, whom she named Caesarion. She now had family ties to Rome. Then Caesar was assassinated. The world shifted, and Cleopatra had to find a new Roman to align with, because Egypt without Roman backing was Egypt exposed. With the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC, Rome fell into civil war. To end the fighting, a coalition known as the Second Triumvirate was formed by three of the strongest belligerents: Octavian, Caesar's great-nephew and chosen heir, Mark Antony, a powerful general, and Lepidus, a Roman statesman. The empire was divided among the three, and Antony took up the administration of the eastern provinces. And that is when Antony and Cleopatra's story begins. Upon arriving in Asia Minor, Antony summoned Queen Cleopatra to answer charges that she had aided his enemies. She came, and whatever happened in that meeting, the two of them ended up in an alliance. Political, personal, and eventually military, that would define the next decade. The battle that ended it all was the culmination of over 10 years of rivalry between Octavian and Antony following the assassination of Julius Caesar. After the Second Triumvirate ruled different regions of the Roman Republic, mutual suspicion and resentment between the three men resulted in its fracture in 36 BC, when Lepidus was exiled by Octavian, and it ended in 33 BC when Antony refused to participate. So now it was just two men, Octavian in the west, Antony in the east, with Cleopatra and the wealth of Egypt behind him. And Octavian was very good at propaganda. Octavian made Antony a traitor and that made it much easier to turn people against him and declare war. And war was indeed declared by the Roman Senate, interestingly, on Cleopatra as Queen of Egypt rather than Antony. Think about that for a second. Rome declared war on a foreign queen, not on one of its own generals who had gone rogue. That tells you everything about how Octavian was framing this. This wasn't a civil war. This was Rome defending itself from an exotic Eastern temptress who had corrupted a great Roman man. As history is written by the victorious, this version of Mark Antony became the accepted part of the story. The attraction of blaming an exotic woman, the Eastern Queen Cleopatra, for corrupting Antony was the tale that posterity accepted. Keep that in the back of your mind, because almost everything we know about Cleopatra comes from Roman writers, writing after Rome had already won. The Battle of Actium was a naval battle on September 2nd, 31 BC, where Octavian defeated Mark Antony, becoming the master of the Roman world. Antony had 500 ships and 70,000 infantry, while Octavian had 400 ships and 80,000 infantry. On paper, Antony had the bigger force. But things were already falling apart before the first ship moved. Desertions by some of his allies and a lack of provisions soon forced Antony to take action. His coalition was crumbling. His men were losing faith. And then the battle itself went badly. After heavy fighting, Cleopatra broke from the engagement and set course for Egypt with 60 of her ships. Antony then broke through the enemy line and followed her. The disheartened fleet that remained surrendered to Octavian. 1 week later, Antony's land forces surrendered. That retreat is the moment everything changes. They still had time. Almost a full year, in fact. Although they had suffered a decisive defeat, it was nearly a year before Octavian reached Alexandria and again defeated Antony. But the situation was deteriorating fast, and Cleopatra knew it. She was a queen watching her kingdom close in around her, and she started preparing. Here is where it gets fascinating, and this is the detail I mentioned at the start that changes how you read everything else. Plutarch wrote that the queen had a tomb and monument built surpassingly lofty and beautiful, which she had erected near the temple of Isis, and filled with her most valuable royal treasures. She had built herself a mausoleum, a monument to her own death, stocked with gold, silver, pearls, and art. And when Octavian's forces closed in on Alexandria, that is where she went. Cleopatra fled to her mausoleum and sealed herself and her treasure inside, accompanied only by her maidservants Eris and Charmian. So picture this: a queen, hiding inside the tomb she built for herself, surrounded by her own treasure, with the doors bolted shut. That is the setting for what happens next. After Cleopatra and Mark Antony's naval forces were crushed in the Battle of Actium, the queen fled for refuge into her tomb and let fall the drop doors, which were made strong with bolts and bars, wrote Plutarch. Then she sent messengers to tell Antony that she was dead. She sent the message herself, through her own people. This was not a rumor that slipped out accidentally. It was a deliberate dispatch. A queen locked in her own mausoleum, orchestrating a piece of information that she knew would travel fast and hit hard. Why? The honest answer is that we don't know for certain, but the context gives us a lot to work with. Antony was becoming a liability. His forces had collapsed. His men were surrendering, and Octavian was coming. Whatever Cleopatra was calculating in those hours, whether she was trying to buy time, control the chaos, or remove Antony as a factor before he made things worse, the move was hers. She made it. She sent the message, and the effect was immediate. When Antony falsely heard that she'd died by suicide, he stabbed himself with his sword. Just like that. The man who had commanded armies across the eastern Mediterranean, who had fought alongside Julius Caesar, who had ruled half the Roman world, fell apart the moment he heard she was gone. Distraught, Mark Antony stabbed himself with his sword, but the wound did not kill him right away. Learning that Cleopatra was still alive, he ordered his servants to carry him to the mausoleum. And here is the detail that most retellings skip over entirely. He didn't die from the wound immediately. He survived long enough to find out the truth. Long enough to ask to be brought to her. There, Cleopatra and her handmaidens used ropes to raise Mark Antony's body through a second-floor window as he bled to death. It was to the mausoleum that Antony, dying of self-inflicted sword wounds, was brought so he might take a last sip of wine and perish in Cleopatra's arms. So the fake death worked, and catastrophically failed, at the exact same time. It removed Antony from the situation, which, depending on how you read Cleopatra's intentions, may have been part of the calculation. But it also meant she was now alone. The doors were bolted, Octavian's forces were surrounding the building, and she had watched a man she cared about die in front of her inside her own tomb. Now, here is the part that almost nobody talks about. And this is the thing I mentioned at the beginning that quietly reframes the whole story. After Antony died, Octavian wanted Cleopatra alive. Not out of mercy. After Octavian had succeeded in capturing the Egyptian queen in her mausoleum in Alexandria, she was strictly guarded. Because Octavian allegedly wanted to present Cleopatra in his triumphal procession in Rome, he instructed her guards to prevent her from killing herself. He wanted to parade her through the streets of Rome as a trophy. That was the plan. A living queen, the last pharaoh of Egypt, displayed in chains for the Roman public. Having been chased to Alexandria by Octavian, she effectively took refuge in her mausoleum for a time in fear for her life. In this particular version, the mausoleum is described as having multiple floors, with windows or doors in an upper level, which allowed Cleopatra to communicate with those on the ground outside. She was technically captured, but she was still operating, still thinking. The queen was able to feign her will to live so that her guards observed her less strictly. There it is again. The same pattern. The carpet, the fake death. And now this. Performing compliance, performing surrender, buying just enough space to act. This is who she was, consistently across decades. Cleopatra chose death over the humiliation of being paraded through Rome as a spoil of war. Rather than fall under Octavian's domination, Cleopatra committed suicide, possibly by means of an asp, a poisonous Egyptian serpent and symbol of divine royalty. Threatened with captivity by the Romans, Cleopatra took her own life at age 39. Some speculate by using snake venom, though that has never been proven. The historian Plutarch claimed that Cleopatra was known to hide a deadly poison in one of her hair combs. So many historians now suspect she actually used a pin dipped in snake venom to commit suicide. The asp story is vivid and it's stuck, but the method is genuinely uncertain. What is not uncertain is the choice. She decided how this ended, on her terms, not Octavian's. The Egyptian ruler died on August 12th, 30th BC. Her death in effect brought an end to the Ptolemaic dynasty that had ruled Egypt for almost 3 centuries. Egypt thus became a Roman province. And then Octavian did something that tells you exactly how seriously he took her, even in death. An effigy of the dead Cleopatra upon a couch was carried in his triumphal procession through Rome, so that in a way she too was a part of the spectacle and a trophy in the procession. He couldn't parade the real queen, so he paraded a statue of her instead. Even dead, she denied him the moment he wanted. Now, here is the thing that should sit with you after all of this. Mark Antony and Cleopatra were buried together after their deaths in 30 BC. Their tomb has not been discovered. According to historians Suetonius and Plutarch, Octavian permitted their burial together after he had defeated them. According to ancient Roman writers, Cleopatra and Mark Antony were buried together in Cleopatra's mausoleum in Alexandria, which was still under construction at the time of their deaths. And to this day, nobody has found it. Plutarch wrote that Antony and Cleopatra were buried together in her mausoleum in Alexandria, but no evidence of her tomb has ever been found there. The last queen of Egypt and the man who fell apart when he heard she was dead are somewhere under Alexandria, and we still don't know where. Now, here is the open loop I planted at the start of this video. I said the version of Cleopatra most people carry around was written by Rome after they had already won. And that is the real thing to sit with. Almost every source we have on Cleopatra, Plutarch, Cassius, Dio, the Augustan poets, was written by Roman men in the decades after Octavian became Augustus and rewrote the story of how he came to power. The narrative of Cleopatra as a seductress who corrupted Antony was politically useful. It made Octavian the hero who saved Rome from a dangerous foreign queen. It made Antony a victim rather than a rival. And it made Cleopatra a villain rather than a strategic genius who came closer than almost anyone to checking Rome's expansion. When you look at what she actually did, the carpet, the fake death, the performance of surrender to her guards, you see someone who was operating under impossible pressure and finding moves that nobody else would have found. She was not a romantic tragedy. She was a tactician. And the fact that Rome needed to spend centuries making her into something smaller than that is, honestly, the best evidence that she was exactly as formidable as the story suggests. That is the version of Cleopatra this video was always building toward. Not the one on the golden couch. The one who sent the message, bolted the doors, and made the most powerful man in the Western world stab himself within the hour. If this kind of history, the real mechanics behind the famous moments, is the kind of thing you want more of, drop a comment below with the historical figure you think is most misunderstood by popular culture. Genuinely curious what you all say, and the best answers might end up shaping a future video. And if you want to stay in the loop when that drops, subscribing takes about 2 seconds, and it actually helps more than most people realize. There is a video on this channel that covers the other side of this story, the rise of Octavian, and how a young man with no military genius of his own managed to outmaneuver every single one of Rome's greatest generals. It connects directly to everything you just watched. That one is worth your time.